Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Tape podcast news video. This is a little bit of an offshoot of the podcast where I kind of wrap up a bit of news that's happened in December of 2020. This is a once a month video that we kind of talk about things that are happening, bikes, tech news, industry news, etc. This episode starts off with a bit of dark news, a bit of a sad story, but one of Australia's greatest inspirations, writers, kind of influences of the sport in Australia has passed away. Paul Begg, aka Beggsy, by the people that knew him. Unfortunately, I never got the chance to know the guy. He was one of the first mountain bikers in Australia. He was one of the first journalists who did massive adventures. Like, some of the stuff he's done is really cool, especially like his ride with Matt Holmes, the Salt to Snow ride they did a couple of years back where they raised money for cancer. Cancer was a battle that he'd been fighting for the last kind of 4 to 2 years. Last couple of years have seen him go downhill a little bit. In the last few months, he couldn't even ride his bike. A lot of his mates that I reached out to had some really cool anecdotes, and everyone spoke really fondly of the guy. It turns out that they had a really good reception and a really good event to say goodbye to Beggsy. So yeah, my condolences go out to his family and friends and anyone that knew him that's watching. Really sad news. All right, so that's the sad and dark news. That's out of the way now. In better news, bicycling retailer has put up an article showing that the bike imports in America have gone up 19% in 2020 from the year before. Unsurprisingly, we've seen a lot of this come through after the pandemic started around March, April, May, and then June and July was peaking. Obviously, stock shortages kind of led to a little bit of a plateau there. The LATS report, basically, they did another article recently that was also on bicycle retailers stating some of the reasons we've got stock shortages. Not only has this boom in the industry sold all the bikes, but we've also seen a lot of factories kind of reducing their output. You've got 300, 400 day waits on some parts. Bike manufacturers can't get materials or the components to make their bikes fast enough, so it's been crazy. A couple of stores I know of, like Bicycle Express in Adelaide, they had 140 bikes or so rock up on the day before Boxing Day. They had to build those bikes and get them ready for Christmas. So delays in shipping, in stock, everything is crazy. Even the LATS report said that warehouses with usually stocking 1,300, 1,500 bikes are down to 300, 350, if that. Some don't even have bikes in their store. So it's an insane time for the industry. We've also seen some big investments. A company or an investment portfolio by the name of GBL. They're a massive holdings company or capital investment company. They've got a major stake in Canyon. What does this mean? Well, it doesn't mean they're going to take over the company and start making random kind of cookie cutter bikes. These investment firms invest money or give money to these companies to help with their development and the expansion of the company that they invest in. So Canyon's going to have extra income or extra capital now to use for development on bikes, development on marketing, development on athlete development, etc. How many times can I say development in this one paragraph? Basically, I expect to see Canyon releasing some big new bikes. They're going to put a lot of development, a lot of time into refining everything, and I think this year is going to be big. I had a good chat with Jack and Leo from Canyon about the new Spectral, and after that we were throwing around a few messages and stuff, and it does seem like there's going to be some big things this year. 2020 was a big year for them, and 2021 is just going to be bigger. One weird industry news bit that has thrown a spanner in the works for a few companies, and a lot of people are screwing up their eyebrows and faces going, what the has happened here? Nolly Bicycles from Canada has decided to sue Intense on a patent infringement. This patent states that their bike They can create bikes with 4 to 5 inches of travel. The seat tube's 64, 65 degrees to 74 degrees, where the seat tube, it has a minimum dropper insertion, or a dropper can be put in the bike, and the seat tube junction is in front of the BB on the down tube. It's a very, very vague and big, wide open patent. So I'm surprised this hasn't come up sooner. But it does seem like an opportune time for them to do this. I can't read into it too much, but it does seem like a weird one. I don't understand why Intense has become the aim of this. Plenty of other bikes do it. Even some bikes bend the seat tube to maybe get around it. But either way, it seems like a bit of a money grab and a bit of a weird issue from Nolly. All right, speaking of bikes and the along that lines, we've got a new bike from Evil. They've got a new offering. Weird way, I guess they're offering a new offering. It's a bit of a trail bike, 140, 150 mil kind of bike. It can have a 160 mil fork on the front. Even with a 160 mil fork on the front in the extra low position, it's still a 65 degree head angle, which isn't crazy by today's standards, but it should lead to an agile bike. The large frame has a reach of 486, which is quite up there, and all the chainstays along the range are 430 mils, so it's going to be super playful, super poppy. Not cheap though, coming in at around probably $5,500 for a frame in Australia. However, they do have a bunch of cool frame features like internal routing, the stay quiet, stay deadly kind of rubber protections, and then they've also got a direct mount chain guide and stuff like that. And from what I understand, these bikes just last forever. So if you're interested in one, hit up Caffin Bike Co. Those guys are a really good distributor, and Paul Caffin's a really good dude. So hit them up. We've got a new-ish Nomad. It's very much like the 2020 model, or even the 2018 or 19 model when it first came out, the Gen 4. This one's not a full revamp, so I wouldn't even say it's a Gen 5. It's just a revised Gen 4. Some different suspension kinematics. We've got some different colors as per usual from Santa Cruz. Head angles around 64 to 65 degrees. Head angle 64 to 63.7 degrees. Huge change there. Biggest, they've got a reach of, what reach have we got here? Got a reach of 472 on a large. It's a bit short, but you know, this bike's going to be a super playful 27.5 inch kind of trail downhill play rig. The biggest difference they've made for this year, and it's not surprising after seeing Greg Minnaar playing around with those things on his V10, but they do have size-specific chainstays. 425 is the smallest on an extra small, and then you go all the way up to a 441 on an extra large. So 15 mils difference between them, and it's a good thing. I've ridden bikes like Norco and the such where they've done this, and it does keep your weight nice and centered. Pivot have a new shuttle. Exciting news, they've put an EP8 motor in it. They've refined some of the rubber bits on the frame and slackened the head angle a degree. The biggest feature of this thing is a 725 watt hour battery, so you'll be able to ride halfway around Australia with this thing. It is super big battery. They're only bringing in the one kind of spec model, and it's the full Kashima coated Fox factory, all the good bits on that one, and it comes in at a bargain at 16k. Whoo! Next bike we'll look at is again from Pivot. They got the new Mark 6. It is a revised frame, fully revised frame, slacker head angle, slacker everything, slack, long, low, whatever you want to call it. Still 27.5 inch wheels to retain its kind of poppy playfulness, agility. If you want a race bike, get the Firebird. It's a 29er, same kind of deal. It's just a bit more racy, whereas the Mark 6 is a little bit more of that kind of big travel trail bike. They finally swapped the shock position, giving it a much better frame look than last year. Last year's looked like some wet noodles thrown on a chopping board, and that's kind of how they went with it. You don't know what spec you want? Well, good thing is Pivot have decided to offer everything. There are 51 variations of this bike, if my math is correct. You have seven build kits, so ranging from SLX to XO1 to Axis. Each build kit comes in a coil, an air, or a live valve configuration. So you can have, say, an SLX build kit with an air shock, or if you want, you can have live valve, or you can have coil. The lower two ones, the SLX and the GX builds, don't come with the live valve option. Each frame is offered in 3 colors by the looks of it. And then you've got wheel upgrades that are available with that, leading to 51 different variations. I think it'll be a sick little bike. Short chain stays, long reach. But honestly, that top tube flowing into the seat stay, every bike brand should do that. Transition spur, etc. They look so sick. Even the new Spectral has it as well. Now, while we talk about Canyons looking like hardtails, they released their new kind of entry-level Stoic. It is an alloy hard-hitting hardtail, 140, 150 mil travel on the front. You're looking at SX drivetrain on your entry-level stuff with 1x12, dropper post, everything. RockShox kind of recon fork for $18.99 Australian. Like, that is killer. It is the new STP from back in the day. Myself, Conifera, and a bunch of people had that STP, a geared dirt jump bike, and this is kind of modern variation of that. Plenty of room to upgrade, plenty of room to make a bike that's going to do a bit of everything, whether you want to hit the dirt jumps or whatever. Super stoked on it. The build I'd go for is the Stoic 4, where you get a Pike Select, you get NX kind of drivetrain on it, which is neither here nor there. Bit of better wheels, bit better componentry everywhere, and that comes in at 2,649. So with a decent frame, decent suspension, you could make this build into whatever you wanted. For under, I'd say $4,000, you could have a sick bike. Really cool thing to see. A little bit more hard-hitting hardtails, I think, are coming out in the future, and I believe there might be a new bike coming out next month, which is quite cool. It's proven to be unfathomable in nuclear disasters, so take that for what you want. In tech this month has been pretty chill. We've got some new composite pedals from DMR, the V11s. They are a sick little plastic pedal. Why would you want plastic? Well, for example, the one-up components pedals, the metal ones, they crack at the point where the pin goes through the corner of the pedal. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. It's whatever. Shit happens. But the composite doesn't, because it's got that extra little bit of flex, that extra little compliance in that pedal body. They don't crack. So the composite pedal is going to be a super good value for money option that's going to last a lifetime. To go on those pedals, you could look at the new Crank Brothers shoes. They've finally brought out their own shoes. If you've been on Instagram, look at Fabio Vilma's Instagram, we've looked at a few others, like even that guy from Pivot, Bernard Kerr. He's been wearing them for a while as well. They've been going under the brand Question Mark. They've got a boa dial on one of their flats, which is finally an option that we can get. Their lace-up shoes have a cool little tuck underneath the tongue where you can put your laces in. Just tuck them up in there. It makes a super clean shoe, and that won't ever come out and wrap around your pedals or whatever. Really excited for these shoes. Hopefully I'll get a set for myself one day when I sell liver, because I think they start at around $350 retail. It's Crank Brothers. That's what's happened. Some latest tech or product spotlight for this month. Something else I'm going to do a bit more recently. Going to try out a few things. My Instagram's also going to have a few things on it as well. But this month, I was lucky enough to get some Formula Cura 4s from 81 Spices. I did pay for these. These are mine. They didn't give them to me for this review. But first ride on the Spectral, I snapped a SRAM lever. It wasn't SRAM's fault. It was the rocks. Anyway, need a new brake. Borrowed a mate's Cura 2. Loved it. That thing was mental. The 2-piston brake is so damn powerful that Loic Bruni's even won world champs on it. The only issue I had with the 2-pot was the lack of modulation. It was a bit bitey, a little bit harsh, and nearly threw me over the bars a couple of times just because I don't have that great a feeling in my fingers and my modulation isn't that great. But the 4-pots have the same amount of power, so they actually run 2 smaller pistons. The pistons react differently to the amount of fluid going through there, so you have better modulation around the same power, if not a little bit more. Bleeding and installing was fairly easy. Unfortunately, in this world, we have 9,000 bike standards, but tool makers don't know the requirements for making tools. So my older Formula Bleed kit didn't quite fit on these. The bleed kit hit the nut and it wasn't that great from bleeding the caliper end, but they work fine. They work really, really good. The thicker rotors are super quiet. The bigger pads and the bigger braking surface on the rotors is amazing. Honestly, can't fault these brakes at all. If I was to fault them, it would be the lack of grip from the levers, but I also have that on every SRAM brake, every Shimano brake. For some reason, they don't put dimples in the levers or any extra grip. TRP do. I've seen one haul from Mr. Johnny Hall, Aaron Grid's mechanic, drill them into the TRPs as well. It's something you have to do, and it is what it is. Now, I've done it. It's cool. I've got some matte black instead of the gloss black levers coming to see if that will also help the issue. Doing a bit of testing and working it out. But yeah, super sick brakes and cheap too. Can't remember the retails off the top of my head, but I think a whole setup is less than one code RSC end. So that's pretty rad. All right, so we'll move on to the biggest section of this video. Coming into 2021, obviously there's a bunch of team rumours and team changes. We're looking at Mondraker first, where Mike Jones has announced that he'll be leaving Mondraker. That basically only leaves the Bulldog, I believe, and maybe his mate. But Mike Jones is off. Mike Jones is a super underrated rider. He is fast, he's flowy, and he's super stylish on a bike. But unfortunately, he's had some few mishaps over the last few years, and I just think they've kind of put him underground, under the limelight. Phil Atwell and Gatien Vijay have confirmed that they will be leaving Cube. There was heaps of rumours around Phil leaving. Nothing about Gatien, but it does look like they are both leaving. They've only been there a couple of years, and it seems like everyone has been leaving Cube. Remy Italia has also announced that he is leaving or has been fired from the team. Perhaps there is something really at the heart of these dealings going on. Heart. Anyway, big news from this month as well is Remy Tyrion is off Commensau after 8 years. He joined there when he was 22. He is now 30, getting on the end of a career for most people, but I don't think this is the last we'll see of him. I suspect Commensau have noticed that their market is very, very young. There are a lot of young people on Commensau's, so I believe that they're trying to probably keep their team around that way. So with people like Amaury Pirion, his brother, and others they're going to bring along on the future, they're going to have a younger team. Plus, that team's expensive, so someone's going to make room somewhere. Hopefully this isn't the last we see of Remy. He's an absolute shredder, and I love watching him race. So, yep. Next, Luke Williamson, a lesser-known rider off of Propane. They're usually a bit of a feeder team. I mean, they've got Brannigan on there, but other than that, they seem to be a bit more of a feeder team. Australia's own Remy Smith is on there as well, or Luke Smith. He's got no team. Luke Williamson's got no team for 2021, so there's some big things there. Loris Verger announced that he's off of the syndicate last month, but he's also announced he's off of Fox and Shimano. So Fox Clothing. Not sure what this exactly means, but I'm sure it's going to be a bit of a trek to get to his new team, and no one's 100% what's going on there and whether he'll be on RockShox as well. So Who knows? I'm excited to see what happens with Loris. I've heard some rumours about him not quite getting on with some of the team management at Santa Cruz Syndicate, and you could see his motivation kind of deteriorating over the last year. So hopefully he lands on his feet. He's the next GOAT for sure. YT seems to have got rid of 90% of their riders with Valley Hole, Cam Zink, Adolf Sylvia, and Angel Suarez and Hiel. They've all left YT. Hopefully Angel has been a bit of the mob's kind of feeder program, and he's gone on to bigger and better things. I know Martin Whiteley wanted to make this team something where they could bring out the young talent and feed them onto bigger teams. Doesn't really explain why Cam Zink has left. That's a bit of an odd one, and I believe it might have been YT's decision. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on Pyga. They're a South African brand that have some really cool bikes, really underrated, and his brother just happens to be the distributor in America. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Adolf Sylvia or Valley Hole, but the Valley Hole wasn't actually on YT. She was on the SRAM TLD team, and I believe they are looking for a new frame sponsor. So YT might have dropped them, and she could just be with the same team, just looking at a different frame. From what I know, Stickman has confirmed that she is on the TLD SRAM team as well next year. So if you're going to go by anyone, you go by Stickman. He's the insider for sure. Lesser known, well, not racing anymore, not really in the scene, but trying to do a bit more media stuff. Johan Borelli's also off common sale this year. Hopefully we see him on a Grim Donut or something, but yeah, not sure where he's going to go. Bit lesser, like I don't really mind wherever he goes. He'll do well. He's a personality. Katie Winton's off Trek with no team to go to next year. That's huge. She's an absolute snap up for any team. She's an animal, and the dedication more than most people on a bike. Like, you watch some of her crashes and look up some of her crashes, and you tell me if there's a more dedicated person in this industry. So it'd be good to see her get picked up. Lewis Buchanan has announced that Forbidden and him are splitting up, more on Forbidden's side than his. He has been huge for that brand, so it's really surprising to see them drop him. A lot of people probably didn't even know of that brand unless you're on Pink Bike and you're following them and stuff. So he was a lot of exposure. He didn't get to race that much this year, but his YouTube channel was huge, and yeah, it'd be exciting to see what happens with him. Katie Winton coming off Trek, and there looks like some spy shots of Buchanan with a slash, so that's the hot tip there. Lastly, I think that's most of the big ones. The last one I think is probably bigger than most people would think, but Elliot Jackson is off of Giant. He is by far one of the biggest influences in the scene by my standards. He is a G. He is down to earth. He's super honest. He's super funny. Really, really interesting dude. Yeah, I think he's probably one of the biggest ambassadors to have on your team, especially if he continues with Red Bull and continues doing what he does. He's good friends with the syndicate, so I don't know if he'll go to Santa Cruz. Very highly doubt it. He's been doing a lot with Yeti as well, so to see him go there, I'm sure he'll get snapped up by someone. He's going to do big things. He's got a big future ahead of him, even if it isn't in racing. If you haven't heard his podcast stuff with Downtime or any of those guys, go have a listen. Hopefully we'll get him on one day. For me, we just dropped 3 episodes this month. We had the guys from Canyon come on. We had Oliver and Ben Zawar, and then we had Nick Hills Hoist come on as well. We did a rad little collab tea with Nick Hills Hoist, and we managed to raise a bit of money for Lighthouse Youth projects. They do a lot of stuff with young children in trouble, helping them out, getting them stoked on bikes and getting them out of the lives they might possibly go down. So ending up in jail or stealing shit, just living that life. So we've had some big episodes for this month. I was super stoked on all the responses. It seems like I might be putting out a bit too much content, but hey, you guys can catch up. This month we're starting off with a big guest from Australia. We're ending with a big guest of Australia, and then we've got a rad guest from Germany. So keep your eyes peeled because there are going to be some sick episodes coming up. Yeah, thanks so much to everyone for watching. Hopefully this made some sort of sense and highlighted a few things. If you want me to go more in depth, let me know. If you want me to focus on less subjects and go deeper, let me know. If you're happy with what I'm doing, let me know. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll catch up again next month.